Hey everyone, welcome to Algorithm Ali once again. And today's video is about conditional statements with Python programming, right? So now conditional statements is all about making decisions, right? Decisions like, let's say there's the most basic example that I can give here is, let's say that you're driving and you have a traffic signal. Do you want to stop when it's red? What do you do when it's green, etc.? Another example talks about, let's say, it's vacation time. So do you want to travel or not? And third example could be about the grading system that happens generally after exams. So if you get 90 above, it's a grade A, or if it's 80 above, it's grade B, etc. And finally, let's say that you're on diet. Do you want to eat, maybe preferring vegan or preferring something different, right? So that's your option. Making decisions is all about conditional statements in Python programming. Let's check it using code. Over here we are on our collab page, and right here we have just given some pointers, talking about generic stuff on conditional statements. So here we are saying that conditional statements in Python lets us make decisions in code. Like said earlier, they check whether a condition is true or false, right? The main keywords are if, elif, and else, and this is what something you have to remember. This is what we're going to talk about. Let's start with that only. So for example, let's take an input from the user. Let's do one thing. We'll ask the user to enter their name, and only if the name matches with, let's say, Sneha, then they are allowed. If not, they're not. So let's take up this. I'm going to make a variable here called name, and I want to take input from the user. So for which I'll say input function. Very simple. We'll say here enter your name, right? And next, after imagine that we got the name of the user in the variable. Now we have to check the condition. So all I have to say if. So this is how the syntax is. You write if, and then your logic, which compares or checks whether the condition matches or not. So let's say, what do I want to check? I wanted to check if the name that's entered matches with. Now we are going to give a string, right? So we have given your quotation marks, and I have to give the name that I'm expecting to be. So I'm saying that if the name that is entered, if that matches with Sneha, then I'll print that you are allowed. Okay, this is an one-sided condition where we are only talking about if the name is entered as Sneha, then what is going to happen. Now what about the otherwise? What happens if it is not Sneha? In that situation, what do we say? So let's go down next line, backspace. So we have to make sure now we are escaping that indentation gap, and now we'll say here else colon enter. We'll print that access denied, something like that, right? So now you pay attention. Here is in the syntax we've seen that we start with if, we write our logic, we have to give this colon, press enter. The moment you press enter, you'll get a basic indentation gap. Now this gap is really important. If you do not give this gap, it shows an error, and I'll just show you what kind of error it gives. But first let's run the code. Okay, so I'm running the cell here. Okay, so it asks my name. So let's go with Sneha itself. When I press enter, it says you are allowed. Let's try with something else. Let's see XYZ and press enter. It says access denied. So yeah, it normally works. Now the rules that we need to remember here is that after you press colon and press enter, we are now bound with the condition here. The condition must be matching. If it's a true condition, only then this print statement should work. If it's not a true statement, then it should not work. Simple, right? So that is why this print statement is bound to the condition here. Hence, this gap indicates that a print statement will only print if the condition is being true, right? Whereas giving a print statement without any indentations generally mean that it's not bound to any kind of, any condition here. It prints no matter what. Okay, So here we don't have any if or else above it that controls this print statement. So this will print no matter what. But here there are two print statements which prints based on a condition. If this is true, this prints, else this will print, right? So let's run it once more. Enter the name, press enter, and you can see it prints you are allowed, and there's a print statement that I've given in the end which is not controlled by any condition, so it prints no matter what, right? That's how it is. This is about your basic if else condition statements. Alright folks, let's go with the second example here, or the second activity. Let's take up a really small exercise where we are talking about age, asking the user to enter their age, and based upon their age we give a condition that if the age is above 18 years old, he's allowed to get a driving license, else he's not allowed, right? So let's take a variable age. Now I need to ask the user to input their age, which is eventually a number, right? An integer. So we go with int and say input. And we'll ask here, enter your age, right? Or we can just say, how old are you? Now let's take that age variable and use it in our if condition. So how do you write it? You can pause the video and give a try yourself. Alright, so let's see the solution. So we'll say if age is more than or equals to 18, right? We can also use these kind of operators where we are checking if the age is greater than or equals to 18. Then press enter and print that you are allowed a driver's license, right? Else print, we'll just say you are too young to have a driver's license, right? That's it. Let's run this code, and now it's asking for me to enter the age. Let's go with like 25. Press enter and says yes, you are allowed a driver's license. Let's check if other scenario, 18, you're not allowed, right? Another basic approach to our conditional statements here, right? Now let's take up another example where we have more than one condition. Okay, so here we are highlighting more than one condition. What happens in this scenario? Okay, now I would rather say more than two conditions, because we were already seeing two conditions here, if the age is more than 18 or not, right? So two outcomes were there. Now what if we have such scenarios where there are possibilities of having more than two outcomes, right? For example, let's take that grading system thing. We'll ask the user, what did they score out of 100? Okay, let's take that. So score equals to integer again, because it's a number that we are asking the user to give, so that's why int, then input, and say here enter the score here or something like that. And then let's take our condition. Now if the score that the user got is more than or equals to 90, in that scenario we'll print that you get grade A, something like that. Okay, now I want to give one more condition here where it's checking if the score is more than 80, and then what do we print? Okay, so this time I won't say else, because else only specifies otherwise statement, right? But here I wanted to actually give a condition, so I'm going to say ELIF, which basically translates to else if, right? So ELIF the score is more than or equals to 80, then you print that you get grade B. Okay, now only in those scenarios where you don't have to give anything and it's the otherwise, you have to use else, where I don't care if the user gets even 79 or anything below 80 would come under else statement here, where we'll simply print that you failed, let's say, or you did not qualify. That would be more better, right? You did not qualify. Okay, let's run this. Now here we're talking about the score. Let's give the score as like 92. Press enter. And it says you get grade A, right? Let's give something 77. You did not qualify. Okay, so here we have more than one condition, more than two conditions basically. So a condition where you have scored greater than 90, a condition where you have scored more than 80, and another condition which is like, does not qualify the above two. Now I am giving you a lot of examples and exercises over here, but let's understand one point of if and ELIF condition and pay attention to this. So generally whenever you write condition statements, it's not like the score is compared with every statement at a time, right? We follow algorithm, it goes in a sequence. So first it checks with the if condition, which is in the beginning, right, in the top, at the top. So it first compares if it's greater than 90. If it is, then it's going to print the statement and it will not check anything else. It will stop right there. In case the first if condition is not like matching with the score, it then checks for the other condition. So understand the way it works, that's more important. Okay, so having said that, let's go with one more type of example where now here, okay, let's modify this example itself. Now here I'm talking about ELIF statement. Is it possible that I can give more ELIF conditions? Because I'm talking about more than two conditions. I can have 4 conditions or 5 conditions. What to do in that case, right? So yes, I can give one more condition or as many ELIFs as I want. So let's insert one more ELIF statement here, and where I'm talking about the score to be, let's say, more than or equals to 70. Okay, and then we'll just print here as you get grade C or B plus, anything like that, B plus and B, up to you, whatever kind of grade system you wanted to create, right? Now, also one quick thing that most of the time, students get confused that should we have spacing here? Is it mandatory? It's not. It doesn't matter. It is just to keep your code more clean. So we just give space generally. But yeah, it's up to you if you want to have the spacing or not. So just keep it, this manner, right? Let me run this code. And now let's say the thing is like 77. Now what happens, right? You get grade C. So it's a very basic, straightforward conditions. Python is easy. This is how it is, like, everything straightforward. Okay, so practice some questions. Now let's take up another example over here. Let's talk about which we call it as nested condition. Okay, nested condition. Now, what does nested condition mean? It means that when one condition is inside the other. Okay, let's take an example where we are talking about, a scenario where you're supposed to enter your exam hall, and I'm sure that this is most common practices, because in my college it used to be that if you are having an attendance of 75 or above, only then you're allowed for the exams. Otherwise, you have to pay the penalty and stuff. But also, if you're not having good attendance, meaning more than 75%, you should at least have a medical certificate to prove that you were not present, right? That's what you can do. So this is what the generally institutions accept. So our first condition is that I must have attendance more than or equals to 75%, right? 75%. And if I do not have, then my second condition is that at least I must have a medical certificate or a medical case under which they can accept me for the exam, right? Let's see how we can pull this off. So first of all, I'm gonna ask the primary condition or primary input to the user, which is about attendance. Let's make a variable here, attendance equals, take an integer. Yes, you're right, integer input, because we have to enter numbers. And we'll ask that, enter your attendance score. Okay. And then in the next line, we'll go with our condition, let's say. And yes, please do pause and then try again yourself. The solution here to this, the problem would be that if attendance is more than or equals to 75, print you are allowed for the exam, right? That's it. We'll go straightforward. Um, but which is the else scenario. Else meaning otherwise. So here I need not say that. So I never say else attendance is less than 75. No, it just means that otherwise, right? If condition is very straightforward, that okay, this is my condition. Else meaning what if that is not the condition in something else? Then what do we say? Now I have to check. So else over here meaning that my attendance could be 74 or anything less than 75, right? In that scenario, I have one more condition. Let me ask the user, do they have a medical case? So let's make a variable right here and say medical equals to. So now think it like a story. We'll say that if the attendance is not more than 75, then I'm going to ask the user to enter or input whether do they have a medical proof. Okay, and then in the brackets I'm going to say y/n, which is yes or no. Okay, and let's go ahead with the next part. I'm going to print here. I'm going to now check a condition, right? We have to check the condition. If, and be sure of giving the spacing here, maintain the space, because this if condition should work only under the else statement, right? So we have to maintain the indentation gap before that. Now, having said that, let's go. We'll say if medical double equals to quotes y, meaning that I'm expecting the user to give me y in small letters. Now, yes, I know that there is a high chance if the user can give capital Y instead of entering small y, then your condition will flop, right? But we have a savior. We're going to use here something that's called dot lower, which is going to convert any input that's entered into lowercase. So lower function is an inbuilt function in Python that basically controls the style of the letter, if it's going to be uppercase or lowercase. And yes, in case of upper, you'll have to say upper. Okay, so I am expecting that whatever input that the user gave, even if it's capital Y, it converts into lower automatically. If it's already a lowercase, then it is going to take it as it is. So now my condition statement is good to go. So we'll be giving here a condition colon, don't forget the colon, press enter and print that okay, you are allowed because you had a medical scenario. Again, do we have a else for this? Yes. So we just come one step back and say else colon enter and just print that you are not allowed. Okay, pay the penalty, whatever. So now just see here, this part, the entire part that you see right here is part of your else condition. Only if your condition is false, then this scenario will work. And let's run this and check. So I'm running this, enter your attendance score. Let's say I've got 78%, press enter. You're allowed for the exam. Okay, straightforward. I got 66 this time. And now it says, do you have a medical proof? So if you remember earlier when my score was above 75, it did not ask me for any medical proof, right? Because it did not need it at that point. Now here it needs because my attendance is really low. So I have to show the proof, say yes or no. Let's give capital Y in our scenario just to check if our lower function works. Press enter and it seems like it does, and it says you are allowed, which says that yeah, I have a medical proof. So it says okay, fine, you come. And let's run it again. Let's give a really low score and then let's say no, I don't have a medical certificate. You're not allowed. Simple, straight and forward, right? That's it. That's about nested condition, where you're talking about one condition inside the other. Okay, yes, and you may have questions like, can we also include ELIFs in between? Yes, you are allowed ELIFs. You can also have nested conditions inside if, ELIFs, or else, using if, ELIF, or else, right? So again, it depends upon the scenario that you're working with. So these are few questions that comes in general, and these are some basic exercises. Now I'm going to leave a slide which is going to have some questions. Take it as a homework, try it, and let me know in the comments. So well, that is it with this session, and make sure you practice the questions and leave a like and a comment for me to know that you've enjoyed the video. Thank you so much and meet you in the next one. Bye bye.